So we're here in Berlin, just before Superbooth, with Richard from Pittsburgh, fresh from Pittsburgh, I should say.
We arrived today, yes. Tired and a little weary, but excited to be here.
Willing to entertain my, can I see it first? Can I see it first? And very nicely so as well. New Voltage Research Lab. I love that it looks Synthy-esque, VCS3-esque in form.
It's a big idea for us. We wanted something that looked classic and yet felt very modern when you used it. Instruments are so personal that you want it to be approachable. So you wanted something that is grounded in something maybe someone's seen pictures of. Maybe, not a whole lot of people have used synthes, and this certainly doesn't function or really sound like a synthy at all. But it anchors you in that sort of classic synth. And that's the vibe we were going for. Yeah,
much like many mono synths mirror a mini Moog. That's just kind of and you see it and it immediately evokes a feeling or an intention or an emotion for that synth. This is interesting in that it's a full synth system, but it's fully modular, unlike, say, the SV1 or the Microvolt that have semi-modular nature to them as well. What led to wanting to kind of go fully modular in on this one?
The reason for the fully modular is simply the modules in this synthesizer don't lend themselves to a standard patch. There's no what I would call default patch in this. There's no real subtractive East Coast thing that you would think is a natural. Like the SV1, there's a natural way to patch it that most of the time, if you're looking for a bass sound or a lead sound, it's going to patch a certain way. Yeah. This doesn't really work that way. So I didn't want to restrict anyone's creativity by limiting the patch or forcing them to think about it in a certain way. We really wanted it to be an open system.
Yeah. Well, we've had a little bit of conversation back and forth before all arriving in Berlin, and this really does push its way out of that. I mean, could you talk us about some of the wave shaping on the oscillator, for example? It's way more than just, again, a standard subtractive thing, or even a standard kind of West Coast thing as well. It seems like the wave shaping, there's multi-layers to this in terms of its tonal kind of possibilities.
Yeah, the wave shaping we're really proud of. At Pittsburgh Modular, we try to let our engineering lead the way. And for us, the idea of the synth was something very organic and very natural, and wave folding was a huge part of that. So we started with the wave folder that we had in the Microvolt, but tweaked it to make it a little bit smoother and a little bit cleaner. But then we thought, well, okay, that's great, but we want to use some of these other waveforms. Typically, you can't fold a square wave, and you can't.
Any hard edge wave tends not to fold.
It doesn't work. So what we did was we sat back and say, how can we change that? How can we make it possible to fold waves that were previously impossible to fold? So we came up with a circuit that what it does in sort of a nerdy sense is it changes the shape of the wave without changing the harmonic content. So what that allows us to do then is to run that same harmonic content you would get from a square wave or a saw wave, run it through a wave folder and make it even more complicated with even more harmonics.
Yeah. So it kind of runs down a path of not complex to use. The execution looks like it's very simple interface, but a complex tonal engine. And then it runs down this path of, well, it could be stereo. We discussed you could probably get a couple of voices out of this. You could do fully stereo voices out of it. You could do a more complex mono voice combinations thereof. You've chosen to go for VCA, VCF, low pass gate combos for all your kind of dynamics, but no Vactrals. We did speak a little bit about these are modeled kind of low pass gates, as it were.
Yeah, this is another circuit that, we spent a lot of time working on where Vactrals are sort of a funny beast. Sometimes they're real short and they sound nice and plucky. Sometimes they're real long and they sound big and tubby. But what if you have a real long Vactral and you want the short sound? It's just, you can't do it. You have to physically remove the Vactral and replace it with a different one. This is another engineering problem that we sat down, put our heads down and solved. So what we came up with was an analog emulation of the Vactral that allows us to dial in the sort of Vactralness or the response of the Vactral, so you can have very short and plucky, or you can have the very long tubby response all at the same time, just by simply turning the knob. For this instrument, and now we've had that circuit now for a while. We've had it in it. We've had a Eurorack module. It was featured in the microvolt synthesizer as well. For this instrument, we've sort of taken it the next natural step where we added. It took us a while to figure out how to do it, but we added voltage control over that response. So now you can voltage control sort of the response of the Vactrol in the low pass gate.
Yeah. And again, it speaks to this kind of just being, well, the research lab, the kind of, it will be whatever you kind of want it to be, and it will respond in a way that you want it to respond. The function generators as well, I think, are an interesting choice. And again, whether you want them to be LFOs or more oscillators or envelopes or to have a hold stage or a triggered state. Again, just speak to a little bit about those choices for function generators as opposed to typical LFOs, ADSRs or ADs.
I think the function generator, sort of as defined by Serge years and years ago, really defines that West Coast experimentation. So we thought with this synthesizer, it was the perfect choice. Now, we did add some of our own flavor to it, too, with some different unison modes. So you can do the sort of pseudo quadrature, but then you also have additional unison triggering modes. So they can really, the two function generators can really interact with each other in some really interesting ways. So you can get the sort of chaotic randomness that I think a lot of people are looking for. But at the same time, you can do the typical attack release and the attack decay. It has, sustain. So it can be all the stuff you would expect it to be, but control it in maybe a little bit more complex way.
Yeah, and there's a nice few people that have been eagle-eyed on Modular Grid will have seen there's little kind of bits of random and utility dotted along that break out beyond the kind of key module functions above. I'd like to speak to the use of random and in trying to make this thing organic and breathe and live. And I mean, it's key to a lot of West Coast sound, but what does that offer you as a designer? Because you don't see many people put more than one random source on many instruments.
Well, as an artist, I use random all the time. So when I design an instrument, it's an important part of what I want out of it. So for this instrument in particular, because it is a very West Coast vibe, we didn't add, something like a Buchla source of uncertainty or something that's sort of a large monolithic random source. But what we did was sort of sprinkle all the tools you need around the instrument. So the MIDI CV converter has an arpeggiator built in that can be randomized. You don't need to use it as the MIDI. It'll generate random patterns, and you can use those. Yeah. It'll also generate fully chromatic, just random out of that as well. Yeah. There's also a second random with a random gate that is, again, chromatic. And then there's, sample and hold is in there. The random CV output is based on a 6-stage shift register. So what you have is you're cycling through or sequencing through 6 stages, and there's a chance each time that stage plays that it's going to change. But it doesn't have to. So what you end up with is these sort of evolving randoms instead of complete randoms.
Yeah, and it's an incredibly musical thing when there's some element of looping or almost like known or learnt behavior built in. It's not just white noise through sample and hold. But I think what's unique is, as I said, they're different random sources. So it isn't that the random generator's gone up in voltage and everything is brighter or louder or longer in time. Everything can just uniquely nudge and live and breathe. And I think that just really plays to, again, the research lab, the kind of potential of it. I think the touch controller is an interesting interface, and the first one I've seen that actually splits a left and a right element. Even something as simple as one hand deals with pitch, the other deals with tone, is just a massive thing for expression. That there are other touch interfaces, of course, through synth history, but I've not seen them broken out that way before. Was that a kind of bright spark moment? Was it a really carefully planned thing? How did the interface come together?
Every time I've ever used a touch interface, monophonic touch interface, I always then want a second one. Yeah. Most of the time, because you end up having several things going on and you want to control them in different ways. So you always want to end up splitting it up. So I thought it was very natural and a very easy decision to say, well, we have 10 steps. Let's split it into two fives. Again, sort of giving a nod to the Buchla music. He's the one, the 5-step sequences. Yeah. But then have them interact in really interesting ways. So you have the left 5 and the right 5 with their individual channel A and channel B outs. Then you also have an all outs, which is a combination of the left and the right. And that output can be mono, so it can be all 10 together, or it can be sort of pseudo-duophonic, where you have the left and right adding together, but each left and right have their individual outs at the same time. I've tried to explain this several times to several people. It's extremely easy to use. It's difficult to explain.
Yeah, super simple to use. But Matthew that we're with his Modular podcast always likes to say that with these touch interfaces, pitch doesn't have, or values don't have to go up. They can go up and down and up and be all over the place. I just think it's an incredibly musical way to work that's somewhat unexplored. I'm not sure many people, certainly instrument designers, don't nudge people down this path that much. I'm really looking forward to seeing more with it, both at Superbooth, but there's also a Kickstarter, we should say, that's just launched, well, right as people see this.
Yeah, the Kickstarter launched today, and it's a great way for everyone to get involved in this project with us.
Well, I think I really do regularly sing the praises of Kickstarter to people, especially from established companies where there's already trust and kind of love for a company already. I think it allows people to do things and bring more complex instruments together. It's a great platform for it, and it's kind of been a pleasure to be involved with some Kickstarters. If I had to ask about price, I'll get a bit of a kick in the comments. I'm bad for forgetting about asking about price. So we've got the full synth system and the voice itself. What kind of prices are we aiming at for each thing that's going to be available?
The full synth system, the retail price is going to be $15.99.
Case, power, the whole thing.
Case, power, the whole thing. Patch cables, everything you need to go home, plug it in. There's also going to be a manual included with it. The nice thing about when we do these systems is we know what the musician is using, so we can give them a set of tools and we can give them a manual to get them started with examples.
Yeah, unlike you sell them an oscillator and tell them to go get an envelope generator that isn't part of it, and yeah, it's a nice angle.
Exactly. So that's $15.99 for the full system, and these are the full retail prices. There's obviously, for the Kickstarter, there's much better pricing for the people that are willing to help us out on that end. The black box version, which is the Voltage Lab black box, which uses the same enclosure that our SV1 black box uses, is $9.99.
And then the interface, touch interface, will be available as well on its own.
Yes, the touch interface is available as well. The touch interface is $3.99 as a Eurorack module.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we'll definitely be by again at Superbooth and maybe grab some more patches and some other bits of video. I'll put links to the Kickstarter in the description. Any questions, comments? We're in a nice, unique position that any comments that are really quick on this video, I might be able to come back and speak to you again at Superbooth. So do leave questions and comments. And yeah, thanks for your time, and I hope people like hotel jazz bar music in Berlin. Thank you. That's great. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.